Hello, and thank you for listening to the Testing the Spirits podcast. In this episode, we're going to play a brief clip of Billy Graham. You're not going to believe this, or maybe you will, but it's Billy Graham blaming Christians for Islam. So we have this religion, this false religion. It's like the second largest religion in the world, Islam. And you're to blame for it. Well, maybe not you personally, but Christians are to blame because if Christians were just nicer to the warlord, the false prophet Mohammed, then if Christians were just nicer to him, then we wouldn't have this religion. So, in effect, you're going to see the clip that Billy Graham blames Christians for Islam. Watch.
Why is Islam the fastest growing religion in the world?
The tremendous discipline that they have in Islam, in the sense that there's a judgment if you do wrong, and there's the tremendous hope that people have if you are Islamic. Suppose you die on a battlefield fighting for Islam, the promises they give you for the first 1,000 years would make any young man say, well, I think that's what I'd like to have. They have so many things. And I think Islam is misunderstood, too, because Mohammad had a great respect for Jesus, and he called Jesus the greatest of the prophets except himself. And I think that we're closer to Islam than we really think we are.
Well, it's very interesting. If you study the Quran, you find that Muhammad had a great deal to say about Jesus Christ. He was a great admirer and follower of Christ. He felt that Christ was the greatest of the prophets. And you find that all the Old Testament, of course, Muhammad accepted. And I think there's a lot of evidence to say that if the Christians had treated him properly at that time, he would have been a great Christian leader instead of starting what was later to become a new religion.
Okay, so that's Billy Graham blaming Christians for Islam. Now, there are several statements that are just not true. The first thing, the idea that Muhammad, the false prophet Muhammad, was a follower of Jesus. Well, if you're a follower of Jesus, you're a Christian, and the prophet Muhammad, or the false prophet Muhammad, was certainly not a Christian. So that's incorrect. And what's even more false is the idea that he affirmed or believed the entire Old Testament. That's not true. He thought that the Bible had been corrupted. And Muhammad, he said that he believed the covenant was not passed down to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He believed it was given to Ishmael. So obviously Jacob and Israel were cut out of the picture. So the Jews are not the chosen nation. Israel, no, it's the Arabs. And does Billy Graham not know this? He has to know this, and yet he takes a jab at Christians, blaming Christians, but he seems quite favorable towards Islam, which does line up with Billy's other statements to Schuller about other religions being a different path, and it's just more evidence that Billy Graham was not a sound teacher. Matter of fact, he engaged in many false teachings. But with all of that said, how do we deal with Muslims? How do we talk to or evangelize Muslims? Well, they're just like anyone else. You have to bring the gospel to bear. So you tell them, which they probably already agree that they're sinners and that they fall short. However, remember, they're in a system of works righteousness. So along with preaching the gospel, doing what you would do in any evangelistic situation, keeping the emphasis on Christ, talk about those verses where the Bible speaks against works righteousness, that it's all of grace. So if you ever do run across and encounter Muslims, followers of Muhammad, Mohammedans is what they used to be called, focus on Christ, share the gospel like you would with anyone else. But remember, they are trusting in a works-based system, even if they don't put it that way. Bring those verses to bear about grace, the gospel of grace. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and until next time, may the Lord be with you, and have a great day.